What up, friends? I don't know if you heard that. It's my small dog, Pluto. And good morning. It is Monday morning. You're joining me on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Robin Black. We're talking about Doo Ho Choi versus Jeremy Stevens. We're going to chat about. Oh, I really love that Michael Johnson versus Darren Elkins fight. Uh, Apologies, I'm making a small adjustment here. Darren Elkins versus Michael Johnson. A lot of times, we'll talk about that too. A lot of times, we have a tendency, we see a result, and the result will inform us fairly heavily about what we talk about. Sorry, I'm going to do one more thing, please. Bear with me. Ooh, there we go. That's better. Yes, the result will inform us as to what we're going to talk about. And the result is important, the outcome. I mean, people bet money on this stuff. These guys' jobs are affected. What up? Hello to everybody, and we got some hellos popping up here. These guys' jobs and their careers, their lives, they're injured. Of course, the result and the outcome is of massive importance, but it's not the only thing happening. Um, so somebody here mentioned Doo Ho Choi cross training outside of Korea. So I'm close with his team, his management, him, and I've gone to Korea. Quickly, I want to mention, if before we are going to talk about Doo Ho Choi Stevens, we're going to maybe talk about Usman a little bit, and definitely Michael Johnson versus versus Darren Elkins. Those are the three fights I watched more than once. So those are the ones we could talk more about. When you watch something one time, you are Korean, sir. Listen, guys, lose. This guy's a brilliant fighter. Doo Ho Choi is a brilliant fighter. This is what I was going to mention. I have an 8-part series with Doo Ho Choi. You can find it on. I'm very close with his friends, with his team and stuff, and they are. His management team is Monster Zim MMA. So it's the word monster plus ZYM MMA. So they have a YouTube channel. I sat down with Doo Ho over in Korea. We have an 8-part. We're looking at his footage. We're talking about analysis. I go in the gym with him. We're traveling around and chatting. So I know him very well. And I've studied him a lot, years before he was ever in the UFC. And I'm a big fan of him. He's a brilliant artist, brilliant martial artist. And so there's a lot to take away from this fight. But the initial, I started out saying that a lot of the times the result or the outcome directs our conversation. So, for example, Doo Ho Choi lost. What does that mean? Well, we can find out why he lost, what state he was in, what did Jeremy Stevens do so incredibly well. The reason when people, in particular fights, we end up talking about the guy who lost more than the guy who won. Now, sometimes that's directed by our nature. I have a deep interest and a connection to the work of Doo Ho Choi, so I will do that. But a lot of the time, it's the one who captures our imagination for some reason. We fixate on him. So this wasn't something Doo Ho Choi did wrong. Jeremy Stevens fought a fucking brilliant fight. Jeremy Stevens fought a brilliant fight. So when we look at it right now in Korea, a lot of the Korean fans, do you think head trauma from his fight made him more susceptible to being KO'd or hurt? There's no way to know that. There's absolutely zero way. If I talk to a brain surgeon, he won't know that. You know what I mean? There's no way to know that. Is that possible? Of course, that's possible. Football players, people who have taken a lot of damage, we've seen that, but I don't think that's the case here. So he was hit. He was cracked very, very hard in the minute before that. And I went back inside, and he is hit hard. And you kind of see him refocusing his eyes and really showing evidence that he's been hit hard. Uh, I've never seen that in his fights before. Jeremy Stevens generates a ton of power. And more than anybody, Cobb does too, of course, but there was a lot more movement, a lot less. When Jeremy Stevens hits you, he's connected to the ground, really connected to the ground. It's also why Max Holloway was able to beat him. It's why he was losing a couple of fights there for a little while, because to generate his force, his feet are deeply connected to the mat. And then the power comes from the foot and through the leg and through the hip and across the core, and it's generated by his connection to the ground. But you give up something when you're that connected to the ground, and that's fluid mobility. the ability to make large adjustments and stay in power. Am I going to be in Boston? I wish. Um, so that somebody said Stevens hits through you. That's kind of what he was doing, is being able to Mike Tyson you, just really connected to the mat. That's why people were beating him for a little stretch there. And so he had to change. He had to figure out and adapt. He and his team, Dominic Cruz is a part of the same team. He's a part of the same team as Dominic Cruz. So they're on one side is Cruz, hyper mobile, and wasn't generating all that much power, right? The decision dom and all those things people would say. I don't personally find that. None of that matters to me. Seeing brilliance is seeing brilliance. And then Jeremy Stevens knocked people out, or he wasn't getting to them. Couldn't get to Max. Now we know Max Holloway is maybe the best in the world. He is the champion. He's beaten everybody. It's easy to argue that he is the very best. He was able to outmaneuver Stevens. So the Stevens game, as it has changed, has been able to not only solve that problem, but solve it in a way that maintains his ability to generate force. Okay? So that's what he's done. So now he's able to generate that force and get to you, whereas before he couldn't do that. And not on the level of the way these guys are moving. So if we backtrack ever so slightly, Stevens generates force. The old Stevens generated force by his deep connection to the mat, through his feet, up through his body. The power comes from the ground. Then people developed in such a way, with the increase in ability and movement, the matchmakers have to consider matching Choi up with fighters that don't hit as hard. No way, man. He wants to fight the best guys. Choi wants to fight the best guys. That's what he wants. He wants to be the world champion. He wants to fight them all. So it's just a setback. It's a setback. We all have them. Part of life is how you react to setbacks. Some of the most important fights of people's career were the fights they lost. Eddie Alvarez's hotel interview was your best piece. Oh, thanks, man. Surface level assumption. Team Mad had a primarily grappling based coaching, and only since Doo Ho did they start working on slick 1-3 combinations. Okay. Yeah, that is a surface observation, but not a bad one. So again, those are our reaction to it. Needs different training partners. Michael was it right to we're looking for explanations to the result. But the result is not the only thing. What happened to create that result is important. So I know I'm going all over. This is what I do. If you're new to my channel, this is what I do. I'm never going to just go, let's talk about the main event. Who was the better striker? Who was the better grappler? How did this unfold? What's next? But I'm just never going to do that. However, I do 1-minute breakdowns, and I am doing a 1-minute breakdown of this fight. I'm getting the footage together today. It's on my Instagram page, @RobinBlackMMA, and on my Twitter page. I'll have it. I have one there of Volkan Ozdemir right now taking out Manawan. So I'll do 1-minute analysis. But this to me is the fun. So is exploring what's the real meaning of these things. So we're reacting to the result. But let's go back and look at the fight. So in the second half of round one, Doo Ho he's doing equal or slightly better at his outside range. They're kicking each other's legs a fair bit. Pretty equal. Then when he comes inside and starts getting his knuckles to Jeremy, from that tight circle range where we can reach each other with our hands, he's doing a little better. And then inside he comes in and lands a couple of key elbows in round one. So and he's moving between the dangerous areas. So and that's why these kind of cameras are really good. If I'm here, this is where you punch me in close. If I'm here, this is where you hit me with an extended hook or an uppercut. And if I'm out here, these are straight punches. And if I'm out here, these are kicks. And how I'm moving in between those areas, this is your target. It's hard to hit it. We think I throw a punch and hit his face. His face isn't where the punch was thrown. That's happening all the time. It's happening all the time. So with all those things in play against the most seasoned guy, him and Cub, the most seasoned guys he's ever fought. Doo Ho is doing well, kind of edges out round one. And some of the keys were, when I studied him, and even the Korean Zombie and other young fighters in Korea, them playing with where they were positioned in conjunction to who's landing on them were some of the keys. There were a lot of different things. So Doo Ho was doing very well to get in, do what he was going to do, and then not be hit as much. And one of the key elements to that was he would go back 2 and then around 1. Right? You know, you've heard this many times, never move straight back. The movement that you're looking for, and I know I'm just sitting here on the ground, but this is a way that you can visualize it. What we're hoping to do, if we move straight back and your Volkan Ozdemir, you just keep closing distance, closing distance, closing distance, hit me. What we're looking to do is move back enough and over here. That way, as you move forward, you're going this way and I'm over here. It's very simple. This is as simple as it sounds. If Volkan Ozdemir is blasting forward over here and I'm able to step out and then either pivot back into my position, he has to make an adjustment. And when people talk about cutting angles or they talk about cutting off the cage, it's really that simple. If you're moving straight and I move back and over, straight won't do it. So then you need to move straight and cut over. It's really that simple. And Doo Ho is doing a very good job of doing that, retreating and circling out. The problem is, there's only 2 directions you can go. Right? That's it. There's only 2 directions you can go. Now, so what do we start doing? Sometimes we go here and sometimes we go here. Sometimes we fake our body here and do it. If we're out enough, it doesn't matter. But you will notice when Jeremy catches him, it's on that. So if you go back and look, and I'll put it in the 1-minute breakdown. When you go back and look, Jeremy starts pressuring him against the fence. So when I'm against the fence, it's even more so. I literally have 2 directions. And what you'll notice, so Jeremy with flips, he started to fight southpaw, but he'll flip. And he is there with his left hand forward and his right hand back. And as Doo Ho is going to go that way, it's almost like you squeeze somebody and then they pop out the side. You know what I mean? Take anything liquid, and pressure it up against the cage and it'll squeeze out or against a wall or against a screen and it'll squeeze out of your hand. That's what pressure is. You pressure the fighter and he just pops out. If he goes this way, I have my body kick, which is nice. I have kicks to the leg and the head, and I have that right hand to catch him. He's going there. But if he goes this way, I've got nice left hooks as he goes that direction, walk him into, switch kicks, knees. It's really quite simple. And if I guess correctly, and it's not a guess if you're doing what I force you to do, then I know where you're going. And that's how Jeremy got him. Jeremy got him to squish off to the side and then landed the right hand on him. When McGregor, you'll notice almost all of his big knockouts, and I've got lots of breakdowns on it, when he'll push a guy, the guy will curve out that way. And then he throws his left, which is rare and odd. Normally, as you go that way, you're dealing with this hand. And he's able to know where you're going, your head is tracking, and he finds it. It's something that very seasoned fighters are really good at. Really, really good at. And fucking Jeremy Stephens got to him. So, is that something he did wrong? There's only 2 ways he could have gone. It's only that way, or straight back forward, or clinch. He didn't want to clinch. Couldn't keep come back forward. Also, then now you add to it. Okay, so we have those options. Cage, forward and attack me. Clinch, strike, attack yourself, or go one of these 2 directions. And you'll notice in the minute before, he's tired. That's the thing he goes back and addresses. Because if he's not tired, so why is he tired? You can get this shirt at shoprobinblack.com. Somebody just put on the thing, I need that shirt. You can acquire one. I have Enjoy the Hostilities, Hot Lava, and Flim Flam. Did you know that Choi Doo Ho has to go to the Army? Yes, I did. These guys all do mandatory Army service. So, and it shapes their life. It will shape his professional career and his life. He's married to young family with his wife. So, you know, that's part of their culture and their job. So he's going to go do it. So that's the trick now. He has to be, what can he achieve there? Could be in even better shape. Because we're thinking 3 years in the future. So you Doo Ho Choi. I cannot fight for 3 years. What can I achieve in those 3 years? We can be fitter, perhaps. You know, you can try to stay sharp. Learn other things, hand-eye coordination, develop that, be more mobile. You know, work on your footwork, work on, Korean Zombie came back and he looked good. So physical strength, mental strength, what attributes can we improve? There's going to be other guys who know how to fight there. You're going to get to train somewhat, but ability to, and the fact that we're no longer being trained as specifically by the best. We have to find other things that we can learn. So that's what he'll do. But so Jeremy Stevens also. So we say Doo Ho was tired. That's entirely a credit to Jeremy Stevens. Pressure, psychological pressure, mental pressure. When some of these guys fatigue, they're all tired. All of their bodies are tired. It's traumatic to go and fight in a cage in your underpants in front of all these people against a professional athlete. But some of them you see that fatigue, and sometimes that's mental fatigue because they're all physically fatigued and Dan Cormier doesn't look as tired in round 4. Is that because he has better cardio? I would say Doo Ho has to push more forward pressure. He did some of that. It was push and pull. That's straight snap kick was beautiful. And so Doo Ho was fighting outside distance, kicking your legs, popping in, boof, coming in a little tighter. There were some hooks later in round 1, and so now you're Jeremy. You're dealing with all of these different things. Snap kick up the middle. So it's beautiful. That was a beautifully timed kick, and I've never seen him throw it before, to my knowledge. Do you think Choi Doo Ho would improve more now if he trained in a good gym? A lot of people are saying that. I don't know enough about the level of coaching or the people that he's dealing with, but Jeremy made adjustments that probably his training partners cannot. And you need to be around that. So training partners probably is the key. Is the coaching could be good enough, could be the best that he has, but training partners is actually absolutely a key, no question. So I think that would be important for him to have. But Jeremy Stevens did a beautiful job. Pushed him made him tired, sorry. He didn't sense he was tired. He created that fatigue in Doo Ho Choi. Then he pressured him and pushed him where he wanted him to be, and then caught him. Good for him, man. It's beautiful. He deserves that win. They both deserve that extra $50K. It's nice. Glad, again, Doo Ho is a great young martial artist, and he, he's got a wife and a life, and he's got military service coming. So the last 2 fights, he made an extra 100, but he lost the fights. So he'll have to rethink that. I hope he gets another fight before he goes. I don't know when he goes. I think he has time. Choi's a gifted offensive fighter, but such porous defense. It's really never quite that simple. Because if I ask you to do more of this, whatever this is, catch, move, whatever, what are you going to do less of? This. You can't do, that's a whole other conversation. But I can't run away and throw a kick at the same time. I can't be covering my head and punching your stomach at the same time. Now, attack and defend together as one. And today, I think John Danaher is on Rogan's podcast. And John Danaher talks a lot about offense and defense are one when they're done properly. And he is right. If I'm in a position where you're looking this way and I'm over here punching you in the head that you can barely see, 2 things are happening. I'm hurting you and I'm not here. So you are now, before you can do anything offensive to me, you must reposition and protect yourself while repositioning, then get yourself into a position to hurt me, in balance, and then deliver offense. That's how you do it. That's how it's done at its best. Is Stephen Thompson a brilliant defensive fighter? Or is he brilliantly offensive? Is he good at both? He's just a fucking great fighter. He's not there. And he's somewhere where he can hit you. These are the simplistic concepts. Like, once you can simplify down to these concepts, you realize it's like okay, so we've talked about this a lot. People that we share a lot of ideas with that have an open mind are looking at new ideas. We'll talk about this and people will be like, yeah, that makes sense. Other people like, you talked a lot and didn't say anything. I just didn't say anything you recognize. I get that a lot from only a particular type of person. I'll talk to John Danaher or a professor of neurology about the movement of somebody, and we'll have a great conversation. I'll talk to somebody else and they'll be like, bro, you didn't say anything. It's like, I just didn't say anything that you recognize? Striker versus grappler in a stylistic matchup? Is that better? Anyways, I don't mean to be critical. That does happen to me though. I find it weird, but yeah, we talked a lot about what how it'll be good if we can move away from only reacting to the outcome and instead looking at the process. So the process is all the moments of the fight and all the moments of the preparation and all the moments of learning and every step in between. Because when I'll tell you, I'll let you in on this. After the top coaches, after a fight, they go back and they analyze the process. We, the outside viewers, go and speculate on the outcome and react to the outcome. The coaches and the fighters go in and analyze the process. So there are two entirely different realities that are happening. One is the one that you see on whatever.com. And it's got nothing to do with the realities that the fighters are experiencing, the world they live in, how they think, what actually they experience in the fight. Almost nothing. It's like Westworld. It's like that show Westworld. The visitors come in and have one experience, and when they're not there, the real experience is happening. And that's what's going on. So they go in, and and if you are looking at fighting the way you can look at fighting, as a metaphor for life, you analyze your process. So you don't hey, we will all do it. The result, we'll freak out, oh, that didn't work, and this is why. But the process, what can I do better next time? What did I learn? Where were the mistakes? Which fork in the road was the one that if next time to have it to do over again, we'll go a different way? Everything leads to that. And Doo Ho Choi could fight Jeremy Stephens 1,000 times and get 1,000 different results. And some of those results could literally come back and connect to a meal that he had on Tuesday of fight week. If all of a sudden he had an incredibly salty meal on Tuesday or Wednesday and ate something he shouldn't have eaten, that will affect an extra hour in a sauna, which will affect the way that his mentality is, how he rests, all of that shit. All of that will all directly affect that fight. So we can't just sit Robin Black for president. I'll run with Oprah. We can't, we will focus on the journey rather than the destination, definitely. So we're sitting there reacting. Doo Ho strategy was to worry about using a lot of kicks. I missed that. Emmett's fight weight was a huge advantage. You think Michael Johnson is going to stay at 45? I think Michael Johnson, his whole universe would have been different if he didn't. He would have never fought Darren Elkins had he not made this cut. Never had whatever experience he just gained last night, whatever experience he had preparing for this fight, whatever experience he gained in the 6 weeks leading up to it, whatever mindset he went through by losing all that weight and finding out about himself, none of that would have ever happened had he not taken that thing. You got to take chances, and you've got to try some things, and you've got to do some things that fail. The best in the world will often look back, and the failure was the thing that was the key to them being the greatest ever. Some loss. And for Doo Ho and Michael, that could be easily true. Let's say that Doo Ho decides to train somewhere else or a different way, or spend a little bit of that money to bring in maybe Cub Swanson wants to go to Korea for 4 weeks, and Doo Ho brings him over, or he goes over and trains with TJ and Cub for 4 weeks. That if he won that fight last night, he doesn't do that. So you can't regret these things. You can't look at these things and find that, oh, he should have done this or he shouldn't have done that. He doesn't. Let's again just say, hey, Robin, watching from Albania. Love your analysis. Thanks, man. Albania. If you want hot lava or enjoy the hostilities in Albania, go to shoprobinblack.com. It's just fun, a really fun hang today, guys. Really, really fun hang today. The actual nuts and bolts and meat and potato analysis, I'm going to try to do in 1 minute breakdowns on my Instagram and Twitter. They're both at Robin Black MMA. I do 1 minute breakdowns. A lot less exploring these esoteric aspects of the martial arts and a lot more, this is the kick that knocked him out. And I know some people prefer that stuff, and that's where we can find it. Um, so I'm Paul Felder. What I've met him, and he was a very kind and generous guy. I haven't listened to much of his analysis, but I hear he's very good because I don't listen to the volume these days. Because again, and this is no disrespect to anybody, like much love to all these guys. They're the best, but they are talking a different language than the reality that they are living in the cage. And my world that I find exciting and fun and pleasant, and it's been my audience seems to like it. There are others like me who find it interesting. We want to be, and John Danaher, if you, my man, my friend, my one of my mentors. If you watch his show today, I think he's got Danaher on. Danaher talking about those realities and what is happening on television when Joe knows what's going on in there. Paul Felder fucking lives in there. Um, but the machine, the people in their ear and the structure around it and the way that things roll in and all of those things shape them to tell a story that they think that you want to hear. Oh, who's got the better who's the better striker, who's the better wrestler, he's going to dish out some violent ground and pound. None of that shit's how they're talking. Nobody in gyms ever says, and that's when we'll dish out some vicious ground and pound. They don't say that. You'll probably see today that John Danaher he won't even use that word. He calls it grapple boxing. Doesn't sound as good on TV, but it's a little more true. You're grappling and you're boxing. You're developing a style of grapple boxing. So I don't listen to it. It's also maybe why I may never get to do it, despite how much I love to do it, because I believe you can handle insight into the realities of it. And when I will be commentating TKO on Fight Pass, TKO MMA in February, I think the 16th, and I commentate it this way, and we get a lot of good results. I commentate it with truth in mind, with believing you can handle a little more of the truth and a little less of the sayings. So as a result, anyways, the long and the short of it is, can you do play-by-play? Yes, I can. Usman knew it was so. So anyway, my last thought to that is no disrespect, but I don't want to hear the Westworld storytelling. I don't want. I don't. I also don't go to any of those websites anymore. I just don't, because I don't want to see articles about what they said. That's 90% of it. This guy said this article. So, anyways, that's no disrespect. There's nothing wrong with that. There's good things for all those things. There's people who don't want that. Shit, people's lives are incredibly busy. They got a car payment and 2 jobs and family and kids, and they just want to turn it on, and they know that's dishing out some vicious ground and pound. So when they hear somebody say it, it feels good. They don't all want to fucking see martial arts as a metaphor for life. So you hate Brendan Fitzgerald commentating. I don't even know who that guy is. I saw his face, but I haven't heard. But anyways, if you don't like it, you don't like it. Let them know. But some people will like it. Some people will like it, and that's good for them. Robin, do you think about lightweight champ situation? I think. Let's face it. Actually, I don't care about titles. That's another thing. Those are mechanisms too. You've been told to care about them, but do we care about them? Do we really? And there was no title last night. I loved that fight, and I got so much out of it, and I learned so much from it. I don't care about the title. Some of them do, but even that, like it may be. I have a belt. My wife made this cool thing for it to display it. I'll put it when I build a new studio in the next couple months. I'll play. And it's cool. It's a really cool thing to have. I look at it and I remember that day I was in the cage, and I remember when they put it on me, and I was like, that was so neat. But the truth is, a lot of the guys, yeah, they want to have it. They want to. It feels it is something, but want the things that are results of it. So you get paid more, and you get better fights, and you get bigger events, which pays you more, and you get more exposure, and you get to celebrate your skills in different ways. Those are all things that happen with it. But for the most part, a lot of these things have been put there by producers and people who are there to try to, old school television producers, to give you mechanisms to talk about. It's like the rankings, the belt, you know, conflict, things Dana says, all that stuff is there because they want you to have stuff, fun stuff to talk about. They want to engage conversation and all that kind of thing. But it's because some of those people don't actually know how incredible the thing is that they're watching, how incredible it is, how special it is. Special. Michael Johnson, that guy, that round, he looked so good. He's so crisp. And when you watch Michael Johnson fight, much like say a Cub Swanson, ooh, they could fight now. Oh shit! Look at that. That I'd like to see. But and partly when I was going to say that, um, we're going to have like psychologists. Sorry, I missed that. Yeah, this structure makes it more accessible in the short run, but in the long run, when you've seen it enough, if you see one more TV commercial that says, and the winner gets a title shot, is it the same impact as the first time you saw it at the 740th time? It isn't. Can't be. Can't be. You know? So instead, there's just this incredible stuff going on in there. So Michael Johnson, when he fights, he has so much personality in the way he fights. You know what I mean? You see, there's signatures, there's his signatures, you know, all over his style. So it's so fun to watch. And the level, like, there are, people like to see big things. One of your, can you do a breakdown of one of your music videos? I shall, I will, that'll be fun. That's a really funny idea. Do that. When you see Michael Johnson just lighting him up, you're seeing this massive difference in, not, skill is maybe not even the right word, like comfort. Anybody who's done any kind of sport, there are times where they do it enough that they don't think. So I drive a car. I have not driven a car for a long, long, long time, and I've only really been, you know, had my permanent, or my real license over just in the last few months. And when I'm consciously engaged, okay, and we'll drive here, and then we'll slow down, and then we'll put on the thing, and then we'll turn. You're not as good a driver as when you are naturally driving. You've driven enough, you get in the car. If you guys drive a car, very rarely do you think each step, brake, put my hand here, you put it in thing, put on my thing, turn that way. You just do it, right? And try it. Next time you drive a car, try to think everything through. It's just herky-jerky and weird, right? And that's how we start driving. That's how, you take your driver's test, and that's how you drive it first. After you drive a little longer, you start to realize you're just feeling it out. You know how to drive, you drive, right? And I'm not quite there yet, but I'm there some of the time. So I'm able to see on the edge of that how that works. Michael Johnson Darren Elkins was in round one driving the car like, I will put my blinker on, I will shoulder check, I will slow down with this brake pedal. And Michael Johnson was zipping in and out of traffic. You know what I mean? It's like, and the place you see this the most, and this is where it's really shocking, is jiu-jitsu guys will spend thousands of hours to get to the point that they don't have to think about a sweep. It's there and they sweep. And you ask this, and this. But then and wrestlers too. Darren Elkins as a wrestler, he doesn't think. But when he strikes, I can see, because I have thin sliced this, and my expertise is absorbing and feeling out what's happening, and in different ways that improve all the time over time. I don't have to sit there and pause the tape anymore. I feel it unfolding as it's set up, and that's a neat thing, and I love it. But I can see him thinking, I'm gonna try the right hand. Okay, I'm gonna try the step right hand. Okay, I'm gonna try the right hand low kick. Like, I can visually see Darren Elkins thinking, which is why he's got ripped apart by Michael Johnson. Just ripped apart, because Johnson's, he can. I had a conversation with a young kid. He's an undefeated amateur the other day, and he was saying, "Oh, and as I did this, I could see he kept slipping his head that way, and when he would move his hip, and so I set him up with this kick." The kid's like 20. Nobody understood that. There weren't fighters with 20 fights that really understood it on that level only 7 years ago. And now they do. Michael Johnson does. Michael Johnson acts, oh, did you see the way that when I did this and he'd pop out and then I'd get him flat footed? He wasn't thinking any of that. He was just doing because they're not on similar levels. And it was beautiful. Watching Michael Johnson do that thing is killer. But, and there are no stylistic matchups anymore. And at the same time, every single matchup is a stylistic matchup. Forever. We don't need to use that term ever, or we must use it every single thing. But it used to be this guy's a badass wrestler and this guy's a badass striker. Now it's, what is the key moment? So Darren Elkins on top, he's so good at being able to put himself into a position where less of his body is used to hold you in a spot, and he can pin you here and then do something. Or he can pin you in such a way that this is free. Or he can pin you in such a way that this is free. Habib, that's what he masters. And Habib has talked about moving to 145, and he never had a diet nutritionist before, and now he does, who's a master. And hey, maybe those two could fight one day. That'd be cool. Because why didn't Joe Rogan get you on UFC commentating over Jimmy? That's a very kind thought. He's been working on trying to get Jimmy in there for 4 years. He's only been working on trying to get me in there for 2 years. So I kind of looked at it as, 2 more years. But hey man, he's the man. He and Jimmy's very good, and his friend, he's been trying to help him for 4 years get in there. That's the kind of guy Joe is. He's very loyal and he's sense of justice that is very real. You are better, someone said. Well, that's very kind. But we're looking at it different, and what can I do in the meantime? I can keep getting even better. That's what I can do. But so let's say that in this particular case, Darren Elkins finding the way to get into close distance and put Michael down is the key. If Darren Elkins doesn't take all that abuse in round 1, he may never have had that chance. So, sometimes people are like, why didn't you shoot for the takedown earlier? Let's run the fight back. Instead of trying to fight with the much better southpaw badass Michael Johnson out in the field like he did, Darren Elkins tries early to get a takedown. Actually, he did early, and Michael Johnson stuffed him. If he tries 1 or 2 more, it becomes predictable. Maybe he gets knocked out. Instead, he had to go in there and fight that out. He wasn't as good as Michael in that area. He's not as good as Michael. We saw that, and if I just saw them other fights where I saw them training, I could tell you that. That's my job. That's what you trust me to do. He's not as good as him, but he has lots of heart, and he's really tough. And he had to get out there and slug to make that, and even times where Michael came in and closed distance and take that. So that Johnson said, I am just ripping this guy apart. I got just smashing it all. And then once he starts really driving that car that way, then you change it. Then you change the road, or then you back the truck into him or whatever. Because once he got to that point where everything is going, he's feeling good, it's not like he's going to forget about the takedown, but he's going to feel so free. He's not been penalized for 4.5 minutes. He's doing his thing. It's all going good. So that's when, as Johnson goes in there, feel good, gonna get this going again, you'll see very early in that round 2, Elkins just closes the distance, gets a real grip, and puts him down. And now that's his sphere, where he doesn't have to think anymore. He was doing all this exhausting, painful thinking and getting punched in the head. But once he was able to do that thing, some of that led to the ability to do that. Now he doesn't have to think now. Now Michael has to think more. The guy who's free is always going to be able to beat the guy who's not. Now there are exceptions to it. A mistake happens, a good moment, somebody lands the thing, whatever. And we're going to do next day or two. I'm getting together with Mark, I believe tomorrow. We're going to talk about more about Stipe and Francis. We're going to talk about Dan and Volkan tomorrow. Well, that's a challenge for Volkan. Almost every position, unless he knocks him out. But to me, and it could. Hail Marys happen all the time. Guy hits hard, commit to it, hits and fucking commits. Could happen. What if it doesn't in the first few minutes? You watch the way he blitzes guys. Instead of panicking and trying to protect my head, I change my level and I take him down. Dan is on top of him. Come on. That's what Dan's going to look to do. Anyways, we'll be talking about that later. But it's been a fun hang, guys. I really appreciate it. Please check out shoprobinblack.com. Lava, hostilities, enjoy the hostilities and flim flares. Kavanaugh, I said to her, I said, hey man, I'd like to send you something great. And I just sent one back saying, and he's like, LOL, the guy trying to get something to Connor. And I literally thought of it at the last second. But that's funny. And please check out my 1 minute breakdowns. I'm doing tons of them. It's on Instagram. Follow me at Robin Black MMA, and I put them on Twitter as well. Thanks, guys. Thanks for the hang. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Joe Rogan, for being you. All right, guys.